Hey, welcome back to Behind the Label. Today we're doing a little on location. We're in front of what?
We're in front of Hartfield Company. Harris's, or Bourbon County, I should say, first distillery since Prohibition.
Since 1919.
First and only.
Yeah. So keep watching, and we will be doing both an interview with head distiller Kelley, and we'll be doing a couple episodes on the early pioneers of bourbon.
We sure will. Enjoy.
Drinking dark whiskey, telling white lies.
Hey, welcome back again to Behind the Label. Today you are joining us from Hartfield Company in Bourbon County, the town of Paris, where we are at the one and only distillery since 1919, I think.
Since Prohibition.
Since Prohibition. I'm Lowell. I'm from El Rey Photography.
I'm Jerry. Stonefence Tourist is my gig, yeah. But and we're here with Kelley Tennille. So, and it's kind of cool that you're at the only distillery in the whole county in Bourbon County.
Yeah.
So, what's your background anyway?
My background?
Yes.
Like my distilling background or
Yeah.
like my criminal background?
Either one.
Either one, both.
Yeah, they're both pretty interesting.
Okay. Yeah. So my family's from Breathitt County.
Ooh, Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, Bloody Breathitt.
Okay.
I was born right near Helfercertain and Hyden. Yeah, I was born at Mary Breckenridge in Hyden.
We're Cyersville guys.
Right on, what's up? Yeah.
Quicksand.
hey.
I used to go to Quicksand, cross over from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my Memo Day lives right next to Quicksand.
All right.
Next to one of the white flashes by the trailer park.
All right. So
Good.
tell us the
Glad that
difference in a head distiller and a master distiller.
Well, this is just like the Kelley Tennille definition, so take it with a grain of salt. But you're either just like hired on at a distillery as a master distiller, or I think you're, in the bourbon industry for 40, 50 years and you become a master distiller.
Okay.
I personally think that in order to be an MD, you need to work on several different kinds of stills. You need to have experience with several different kinds of yeasts, and you need to be in the industry for many, many years, like a couple decades at least. Technically they could have changed my position to master distiller and I would be a female master distiller, but I think that would be dishonest, so I call myself head distiller. Because there is no official certification, there's no diploma program. I mean, there's nothing really that it's a title that you either give yourself or people eventually give to you.
Well, we talked to
There's
Aaron.
a lot of mythology about
When we talked to Aaron at
what a master
the
distiller
Pepper
is.
Distillery, he was the same way, head distiller.
Yeah.
And he'd been at.
I am not a master distiller.
Yeah.
No.
He'd been at what became the MGP. So he'd been in it a long time. He still considered himself just a head distiller because, like we saw you go by earlier on the forklift, and so he did everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like he just come in, distilled, went home. He was fixing everything. He was grain.
And there's still so many things that I can't do, and so I don't know, why would I give myself this grandiose title when there's so much that I still have to learn. So that's what
Andrew,
I
a good teacher.
Absolutely. No, Andrew's phenomenal. He's been really patient with me. He's really good at seeing talent in people that they don't necessarily even understand exists within themselves. He's very good at
Now who is this? I'm kind of
Andrew, the owner.
The owner.
Andrew, yeah, pretty much.
Well, he and his wife, Larissa Buchanan, founded the distillery.
Yep.
Andrew is just present in the distillery more often because Larissa is homeschooling her children.
Yeah.
She used to run a Montessori-style preschool, and he was a graphic designer and marketer, and they shuttered both of those businesses to start Hartfield. So she's homeschooling all of their kids, and they have a few. The Buchanan boys, him and his brother have
A lot of
several
redheaded
children.
ones, too.
Yeah, a lot of redheaded. Yeah, a lot of redheaded babies. They're beautiful. So she's more active in there and in the community. I think she's the director of the farmers market here in Bourbon County as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but Andrew's just here, with pipe, teaching me how to use pipe.
So how did you get started
wrenches and shit.
into actually distilling?
You said you were a bartender, didn't you?
I was a bartender for
Yeah.
several years. I was a poet for years. I was a journalist. I've got an MFA in creative writing. I hated journalism, but back in my 20s, in my early 20s, I had a boyfriend, and he and I built a little still on the stove in his apartment.
Theoretically, you did.
Theoretically.
Oh,
Hypothetically.
no, we did it.
Oh, you did?
No, we did
He would
it.
definitely join you in this, yes.
Come for me, I do not care. It was 10 years ago, right? So we built a still out of like flour paste and PVC pipe and copper tubing and stuff, and that was my first experience making sugar shine. Since then, I got into a whole lot of lacto fermentation, like preserving my own vegetables and fruits and stuff. Started making wine, I've made my own beer, made my own mead, and eventually, years later, I got a job bartending here. And so, you know, when I told Andrew, like, yeah, I've distilled a little bit, and I have experience here and there with this and that, eventually I started mashing. So I moved my way up from mashing. The last fellow who was distiller here left his position, and Andrew called me and he was like, do you want to be distiller? I was like, boy, do I.
So it didn't take you long to decide?
Yeah, you know, I'm not used to being handed shit. I've never been handed shit in my whole life, and this was just like.
So were you in the mobile bar that they have?
Yes, I worked in a mobile bar.
Yes, I remember that. They still have that?
It's sitting out in the back parking lot. It's got a flat tire, but it will live again.
So it's partially mobile.
It's a cool looking mobile,
The mobile bar will be back.
It is potentially mobile.
But you've moved on past that now, so
Yes.
you would never like return to that.
I love bartending. I still bartend.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. I love making cocktails.
Okay.
Multifaceted.
It's an art too, you know. The cocktail's an art form.
Oh, well, it is,
Especially
definitely.
Pre-prohibition stuff, you know, because I like bitter flavors and unique flavors, and a lot of the pre-prohibition cocktails deal with, you know, bitters and liqueurs and fortified wines and stuff that people don't like now, and I like those. So.
Now, once you got the call and he said, hey, do you want to be the distiller? How long did you go, oh crap, I got to look up like 10 million YouTube videos? Or
I still do that.
You still do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How long did it take you before you got from the call to, I know what the heck I'm doing? I can, you know, I can comfortably make some really nice whiskey. What was the transition period?
About 4 months. I mean, I would stay up till like 2 o'clock in the morning watching videos. I borrowed a bunch of books from him, read them cover to cover, took notes. I've got little books and stuff. Don't call me. Who's calling me?
Yeah, it's evidently call them both of you.
I'm sorry, who calls? Who calls?
Pretty sure that's the, who's over the, not the DEA.
It's a TTV.
Yes.
The TTV's like,
They're just coming
ma'am, what do you do?
we need to talk with
this
you
is going
about
out live, so.
about this garage thing you did.
Yeah. Don't worry, we've had a few people tell us that. You know,
Yeah, ain't gonna catch me riding dirty. I mean, that was 10 years ago. That thing's long gone.
But it
a
was
pressure
good experience. I mean, look what it led to.
Exactly.
That's
Man,
what it
yeah,
led to.
man, I'm so lucky.
Well, the cool thing I hear about that story is kind of, you know, the basis of our video podcast is talking about the history behind bourbon. Every single person that we talk about, that's how they started out. They're farm distillers. They literally started in their garage. They did something that took an interest and a passion, and they said, oh, this is really cool. I kind of like doing this. And
yeah, they committed a felony, and then they legalized.
And then they're like,
yeah.
I may go legit on this. Yeah.
We did 57 minutes of an interview with David Meyer. I mean, I think 10 minutes of it was talking about him distilling on his porch.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, that's a good way to get into it.
I mean, in Kentucky, you can legally distill. You just have to register your still. And you can make a certain amount of gallons for personal consumption every year.
Really? I
as
didn't
well.
know that.
Yeah. In Kentucky, distillation's legal. You just have to register your still. If you don't
He'll be
register
doing that
your
tomorrow.
still,
How much does that cost, by the way?
I have no idea because I've never done it because I'm a rotten punk.
You're from Eastern Kentucky. I mean, there were some
Yeah.
stills in Eastern Kentucky that may not have seen a lot of light.
Or taxes?
So
Just
my-
his grandfather, in the
Yeah,
same way.
my papa was a winemaker, and he didn't really distill a whole lot. I actually, last week, I distilled the very last of my papa's elderberry wine that he ever made before he died.
That's cool.
Yeah, I distilled that, and it's delicious.
Oh, that's cool.
But
Yes.
when he had a batch of wine that he didn't like, he had a little still on his back porch that he had fashioned out of a beer keg, and he would make brandy. You know, he would put it in a barrel and make it into brandy. And when I was little, I didn't realize what he was doing. And I started talking to my aunts about it when I started distilling, and I was like, was Papa making brandy? And they were like, oh yes, honey, we got a bottle here at the house.
Brandy was huge. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, everybody says, you know, there were like 2,000 bourbon distilleries before Prohibition. There were hundreds of brandy distilleries
Yeah.
during that time too. They were
Yeah.
smaller, but they weren't on the big production of bourbon. But there were a lot of people making brandy also.
Yeah, I mean, for Papa, it was just a way to not throw away the
throw away
wine.
wine.
If he just didn't like the wine, he's like, well, there's still alcohol in it, I'll make me a brandy. So I done that. And then, you know, it really doesn't run in my family. Like, I don't have a long history of, like, moonshining, and it wasn't passed down from generation to generation. My Papa on my other side, though, he would build stills as a side hustle. He didn't actually distill. He worked on cars. So So he could get a hold of all of this sheet metal and copper and stuff, and nobody would ask any questions. And so
He was the Eastern Kentucky Vendome.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he would.
Vendome. They
he
make
would
all the
make-
steels and stuff.
Yeah,
I
he
love
would
it.
make very simple, copper pot stills and go deliver them
Yeah.
to the moonshiners out there, but he never actually distilled. They'd be like, "Hey Frank, can you make this?" He's like, "That'll be a couple $100, So.
There you go. There's your occupation.
But I'm really the first one in
I
the
may or may
family
not
to-
already have one in the garage.
Yeah. When you said MD, it was funny. I started to laugh because he was MD also. So
Not master distiller,
no, not master distiller. So
What does that stand for?
medical doctor.
yes.
Oh, like I knew that, but I thought it was something else.
No, he's a big science geek.
You're a doctor?
Used to be. I guess technically still am, but
So, yeah, he's a big science geek. I'm more the history person. He's the science guy in all this and the photographer. And really, I don't do a whole lot.
You're the pretty face.
Now that I think about it, I really don't do a lot.
You're the talent. You're the pretty face in all this.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Sorry, that's why we do so well.
He just wears the other newsboy cap.
Yeah. So one thing about Hartfield and Company, when I first came here, it's been a few years ago. I think they were still called
The Gentleman?
when they were in the original building.
Well, I saw that earlier, and I thought that may have been like some kind of special, I'm like, I'm not sure if that was.
No,
They
that's
went through
not-
a couple of name changes, yes, early on.
That's the old name.
Yes, and there's some like stories behind all
Yeah,
that.
so I won't get into the first story about how we became the Gentleman. You can
Yeah.
find that on the website.
Yeah.
But once we became the Gentleman, Andrew got a cease and desist from a company that I can't talk about. I can
Yeah.
tell you who it wasn't. It was not Gentleman Jack, but I can't tell you who it was. So you do your own deductions
Was it Larry
there.
Flint? 'Cause
I think it was Larry Flint.
He's from our county. He's the most famous person in our county. He just passed away too. So
I'm so glad Larry Flint's dead. Cheers, Larry Flint. Ew.
when you're studying for law,
I'm
that's
glad
something.
Larry Flint's dead.
That's something you always have to study is Flint v. Hustler.
If
That's-
I could
that's a-
kill
that's
Larry
one-
Flint myself, I would do it right
That,
now.
that is a
He's already dead.
that is a requirement in constitutional law.
Kill Larry Flint, I killed Carol Baskin's husband. Who else would I? There's a lot.
We went to school with all of his
There's a lot of men on my kill list.
with all
I
of
was
his
gonna say, it sounds like
nephews
yeah.
and stuff. You remember
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy and Dustin? Yeah.
Well, I
Which
don't-
they have a store in Florence, Kentucky right now. His nephews and stuff. So we're gonna have to edit that out. We got off
No, we can
topic there.
keep all this. This
Oh,
all
we
related
can, yeah.
to, this all
Yeah.
relates to her story about how
When you
came
said
to
you
be-
were from Eastern Kentucky, that opened a lot of like Pandora's boxes there.
It does.
It does. I mean, there's so many. When you're from Eastern Kentucky, it's a whole different world. So and how long you been in Central Kentucky?
Honestly, most of my life.
Have
So, yeah, my parents were smart enough to get us the hell out of Eastern Kentucky. When we were young, Dad got a job at the Toyota factory in Georgetown.
A
right
lot
up
of
the
people
Devon
did.
Lakes.
Yeah, from
And
Eastern
they
Kentucky.
got the hell out of Dodge, and I'm really glad that they did. As much as I love Appalachia, I mean, it's environmentally devastated, and there's not a whole lot of jobs.
My dad was a coal miner for 26 years. I
Yeah,
mean,
so my daddy got a degree in mining technology, and like 6 months after he graduated from Lee's College, the mines in Hazard shut down. So, he went back to changing tires at Breathitt County Tire. So when Toyota opened up in the 80s, he was like, we got to get the hell out of here. My daughters are not going to have any opportunity. So they packed us up, moved us to Cynthiana, and that's where I grew up ever since. But we spent every summer at the Holler.
we go back all the time too, and I
We spent
love
every summer
going
at
back.
Slate Branch.
I love going back, and I love going to my dad's farm. He lives in
I
West
would love
Liberty.
to live there permanently eventually. It's just like, unless you are independently wealthy or self-employed, you're so geographically isolated, and the opportunities for economic enrichment and literally just like getting a job that pays a living wage are absolutely impossible.
They are.
And my parents saw that shit. and
Unless
they
you're going to be a
realized
teacher. I mean, all of our friends that we graduated with, if they're still down there,
It's mostly the
education.
education.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, you've got to be real creative and think outside the box, and you've got to have transportation, which is another thing that a lot of people stuck up on the mountain don't have, is a good car or truck to get around, to get on and off the mountain in the winter.
Well, not only that,
Get out of the
but
holler.
even a larger sense, there's, which I know they're expanding the Mountain Parker right now, but there's hardly any infrastructure there. That's kind of key. There's no really great roads in or out.
Yeah.
Airports, there's no waterways, there's no, like that. Which kind of begs the question, with all the moonshining that's went on in Eastern Kentucky, where's all the great distilleries out of Eastern Kentucky? None. Because there's no infrastructure, because it always stayed as a little, I've got to basically do this to survive, or because I can't afford to buy my own whiskey, I'm going to make my own. And it kind of stayed as that, because there wasn't, you know, we just literally just talked about Jacob Spears, and one thing that kind of stuck out with his stories, he had access to basically Alba Creek, to the Licking River, to the Ohio, down to New Orleans. That's a huge bonus. That's basically like having a super highway. Imagine if Jacob Spears had been in the head of quicksand in Breathitt County, you'd never heard of Jacob Spears. He would have died.
And it's funny because we're from Sayersville, which is where the Licking River starts.
But you still never hear of him.
But it still would have.
Because it's not navigable at that
Yes,
point.
it isn't. It isn't.
So until you have those infrastructure things, I think that's what really does it. It's not that you don't have the, you know, the people that are intelligent enough or hardworking enough.
Sorry, my boyfriend's spam risk is calling me.
You go ahead.
Sorry, please
But
continue.
the thing is, though, it feels like we're you know, dragging down Eastern Kentucky, but I'm proud to be from there.
Oh, no,
I'm proud, yes. I'm proud to be in from there, and it's like, there's no.
I'm just highlighting of why it hasn't flourished.
Flourished, yes.
Based on, you've got good hardworking people.
Yeah, I'm not, exactly, you do have good
You've
hardworking
got,
people. You've got
you know,
good hardworking people,
yes.
they got over by the coal companies, okay? Let's not ignore
And
the
a lot
big
of
elephant in
them,
the room.
took a stand in Harlan last year.
Yes,
so.
they did. Resource extraction is what has destroyed
Well, I
the
agree.
economic infrastructure
You're starting from,
in Eastern Kentucky.
you know, my grandpa told you about.
How red is my
that,
face right now? I could kill God right now. Like, I get so pissed off about this stuff. No, I'm not dragging the people whatsoever.
Oh,
I'm proud to be in
I love it.
Kentucky.
I mean, there's no prettier part of the state than Eastern Kentucky.
I agree.
I mean, there's no place you'll go in the rest of the state that is as gorgeous. And I've lived in Northern Kentucky, Central Kentucky.
It's a mixed mesophytic forest. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, it's great.
There's nothing like it.
Can you say that again real fast?
Mixed mesophytic.
Okay. There we go.
I mean, make that, you know.
Yeah.
I'll say it 5 times fast.
No, I can't even say it one time slow. So you're here.
I'm
So
here.
tell us what is special about Hartfield and Company. I've been coming here for quite a while, and you still.
Have you? I've never seen you here.
He usually wears
I
a
came
disguise.
here.
I'm really on one today.
He usually wears a disguise.
I came here when you were in the original building, when you were called that.
Yeah.
And I came here since then. You've been here since 2019, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you kind of right now you're transitioning, I guess, from the smaller barrels to the larger barrels?
No.
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 So you're still going to do the small barrel program,
Yes.
but you are doing some large barrels also.
I love 6.2 gallon barrels.
Okay.
You know why? Because they only weigh 75 pounds when they're full, so that means that baby, can pick them up and put them on the ricks all by herself with no help from anybody and no barrel lift, which just cuts down on team lifts and stuff. It means I got other people downstairs who can work on projects rather than helping me move, you know, a 200, 300 pound barrel, right?
So you're doing all this yourself? This
I mean,
barrel.
I have help.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I typically take stuff upstairs by myself. And that's, you know, one of the reasons I can do that is because of the 6.2 gallons. Also, we're not going to stop with 6.2s. I love how they age out. In 8 to 11
I was
months,
getting
I
ready to ask
have a
that.
very
How
solid.
fast does that do? 8 to 11 months. Wow.
So
Yeah, I mean,
what do we have right here?
So right now you're drinking batch 62. Batch 62 was made up of 22 barrels, 22 6.2s that I blended myself and then proofed down to 100 and bottled up.
So the small one.
What's the average age of
So not
this?
so bad. The oldest one was 11 and a quarter months and the youngest was 8.5.
Wow, that is amazing because this tastes really
It don't taste
good.
green.
All right, it does not taste like,
It's not
there was
green.
no way that someone's handed this to me. What do you think of this? I would never describe it as, oh, that tastes young, or that tastes like, oh, it needs to stay.
You would never be able to guess the age unless
No.
we put it on the side of
I agree.
the label. And you know, and the people who are ageist will read the label and be like, ugh. And they're missing out on something that's absolutely
I agree.
delicious.
I'm much more like, hey, do I like the way this tastes?
Yeah.
And if it tastes good, I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
mean, we've sort of halved how long it takes to produce good bourbon, and so like, why would I change that? It helps me fill POs faster. It makes rick space faster. You know what I mean?
Now, is the hat just using smaller barrels, or do you use something else? Do you use all the
We
wave
use smaller
technology
barrels
and all
and-
the sound thing? And
No, I mean, sometimes I do play like, you know, Thin Lizzy to them. If I'm
Oh.
feeling, yeah.
So you get a
Sometimes I'll go upstairs and play
you get a
Thin
little
Lizzy.
copper kings like they do with their brandy.
so they're like,
A little,
yeah.
yes.
you age, baby, you
Yeah.
age.
The boys are back in town. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a little sonic aging happening. Go upstairs, turn some Kate Bush on, let them rock out. We are working on some 4-year stuff. It's going to be bottled and bond, and those are up in 53s. And then I've also got some stuff going for some private clients. I've got our bourbon mash bill in toasted wine barrels rather than a charred barrel. So we won't be able to call it a bourbon, but it will be a bourbon mash bill. I tried it a couple months ago. It's delicious. I don't really see a reason to get rid of the 6.2s, but I'd also still like to do some 2.5 year, some 4-year stuff.
But you almost have to do it in 53s if you're going to do that age.
You have
Yes.
to. Yeah, I mean, if I were to try to age out this stuff in a 6.2,
Yeah, what would happen?
it would be as black as your shirt, astringent, completely over oaked. You've really got to start watching these at about 7.5, 8 months.
So about 11 months is about as far as you let them go?
I mean, I've let some go up to 13. Really, it
Okay.
depends on the char level as well. The char 3s can obviously go longer than the char 4s.
Now, do you mix in different chars
I
in
do.
the smalls?
Char 3 and char 4.
And that's just all just on you just sort of tasting, I think this, a little bit of this, a little bit of
I
this.
try to blend them in equal proportions, but really it just depends on what was pulled, what was filled, because I'm not the only one who swells barrels. I'll have my employees swell barrels. So if they go over to a bunch of char 4s one day, and I end up with 12 char 4s on the ricks and 4 char 3s that are ready, well, we might have a little bit of a oakier, spicier barrel. Like we might have an oakier, spicier batch that time around, but I also don't go for like batch continuity.
So you're not worried about every bottle tasting the same then? You want a little difference
Well,
in it?
every bottle out of that batch would taste the
Yes.
same.
Every bottle out of the
But not
batch
every
will
batch
taste
would
the
taste
same,
the
but not every
Every
batch will taste the same. When I batch up, what I want is a good expression of Hartfield bourbon. I don't want every batch to taste the same. I mean, and that's also one of the selling points is that every single batch,
Yeah, I like that.
people are like, and they'll buy a few and then compare them. Because I'll have a batch come out, this month, 3 months later, here's another one. I might not batch again for another 8 months, right? So there's also this sort of, I have room to play, I have room to grow.
Have you had anyone come back or like a consensus of like what your best
looking for a
batches are?
particular batch,
Like, yeah,
yes.
where they come like, you go to me at 31 batch, I'm like.
Well, everybody likes 62, which we're drinking, and then I came out with 63, and now they're obsessed with 63. And I honestly think that 63 is the best one too. Isn't that 60? Oh, that's 62.
No, it's rum, it's 62.
It's about 62. I bought some 63 somewhere, and you boys can try it before you leave and tell me what you think. Yeah. I'm really, really happy with 63.
But you're talking about expanding. We were back in the distillery back here, and I'm used to your smaller stills that you have.
Do you see
You have
Livonia?
something different. I saw Livonia.
It's Livonia.
Who came up with the name? From?
Livonia is one of my favorite albums by one of my favorite bands, and it's also named after a town in Michigan where the band came from. Like they named the album after that. Hey, girl.
So that's a little increase in production.
It's a massive increase.
So how many barrels are you producing before Livonia
Before
a day?
Livonia, probably like 9 on average on a distillation
Small barrels?
rate. 6.2s.
Yeah.
With Livonia, we're going to be moving more like 40.
Now, are you still going to store on site with that
For
increased
as
production?
long
As you can.
Until the wall explodes.
For as long as we can. Well, if you look at the building, it used to be a granary. So there's all these bridge supports holding it up. I mean, this building's meant to hold a whole lot of weight, and it does. But yeah, I mean, we'll keep storing our barrels here till they'll pack to the gills. But we are looking into some other spaces to move our rick house and to move some things for storage. There's just nothing set in stone
It's
yet.
local though? You're going to keep it?
Yeah, like it'll be like right down the road.
Oh,
Anything we get will be close enough that I can like drive the forklift to it and then like take the forklift through the Hardee's drive-through and get like some hash browns and a coffee. Andrew literally drove the forklift through the Hardee's drive-through.
I
this
can see
morning,
that. I can see
and I was like,
I can
yes.
see that, yeah.
This was before you worked here, Rachel, and I was like, pics where it didn't happen. And he sent me like a selfie of him on the forklift in the Hardee's drive-through, and I was like, you are.
What is cool, we were actually on Clay Kaiser Road today. There's a cool little warehouse sitting there that would be perfect for these small barrels. Ooh. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but it's so far away that I got worried about people stealing my shit. And
That is true.
they're going to end up like that man.
Yeah.
The guy that
It
just
looks
left.
perfect for the small
that got
barrels,
his
I'd
head
say.
and hands cut off because my family
yes.
don't
There used to be some
around.
barrels stored in a long time ago. I mean, 230 years ago.
I mean, we'll get something around the
Yeah, I know
corner.
you
We'll
will.
get some sort of warehouse, just so it's easier for me to vat stuff.
But I mean, it's so. I mean, when you're talking about that, that's That's going to increase production. You say from 9 barrels to 40
To
barrels?
like 40 some every run.
That's a huge
You're
difference.
over a 4 times increase immediately. It's not
Yeah.
even a step, I mean, that's a.
We did the
huge
math, and
step
it's
up.
supposedly like a six times increase. Yeah, I mean, I'm going from producing like 46, 47 gallons of usable alcohol after my heads and tails cuts to like 250, 280.
So now, when you make are you still gonna do this? You're just gonna use batches, or at that
Oh,
point,
yeah.
are you gonna be using single barrels?
Man, we really like the 6.2s. Eventually, we would like to have more 53s.
You want to do a bottle and bond, that's the reason for the 53s.
I'm sorry.
You want to do a bottle and a bond, BIBs?
Yeah, we already have a bottle and bond
Yeah,
going.
so that's the main reason going to the 53s.
Yeah, we would love to do a bottle and bond, and I would love to do more 2 and 4 year releases. You know, the way I see it, if you're making good whiskey, it doesn't need to sit in a barrel for 23 years before you
What does that?
I don't know, what is that?
I've never heard of that.
That's crazy, me either. What are you talking about? The way I see it, like, how bad was it that it had to sit in a barrel for 23 years to be good?
Like on year 9, they're like, oh, this is awful.
But
It's
also,
gonna sit
I mean,
here
there's
long.
something to be said about that. Like, we just had 80-year-old cognac the other day. A fella from the Frankfurt Bourbon Society stopped by and gave me 80-year-old
Was it
cognac.
good?
Hell yeah, it was good. And then he also gave me,
Now, this sat in a barrel for 80 years, or it was put in a bottle and then sat in there for 80 years?
It was set in a barrel.
it's set in a barrel. It's set in like multiple barrels.
Really?
Yes, but it was also a blend. The oldest was 80 years old, and the youngest of the cognacs that had been blended for that were 60 years. I also had some Heaven Hill pre-fire. I got some pre-fire Heaven Hill before they lost their...
All the warehouses.
before they lost the yeast strain. Had some Heaven Hill that had been shipped over to, was it Scotland? And then aged in, it was double oaked, right? So it was oaked over here, shipped over to Scotland, aged for another 12 years. It was 26 years old, and then they shipped it back here.
Was it a new oak barrel or was it a used barrel at that time?
It was new oak here, used
Used
oak
there.
in Scotland, and then they shipped it back, and that was some of the best stuff I've ever tasted. But I'm also not an ageist. Like, you know, I've had some single
illegal.
barrels. I've had. Wait a minute.
Sorry.
I don't like that.
Oh, okay.
I think I just laughed at a reflex.
She's like, wait a minute,
Wait a minute.
That's not funny, I
I'm gonna
know.
cut that.
You? No, don't cut it. Don't cut that. Don't cut any of this. Yeah, I don't even remember what I was saying now. It's fine.
You were saying
Your
something
cognac.
that we get free bourbon for doing the interview, something, there was like bottles.
You get a
for
senior
next-
discount? Is that
It
what?
was something.
We
like-
are headed that way,
We
yes.
are close to that, yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of ageism.
Nothing's free in Waterworld, man.
So what's next? You got the big new still. I mean, what is
We got
next
the
for
big
Hartford and Kelley?
steel. Just keep on keeping on, I guess. Yeah, we got the big new steel, massive increases in production. I'm working on a line of all sorts of weird brandies.
You said that, yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I'm doing some research and development as far as, you know, making a Papa brandy, you know, maybe an absinthe.
Now, this
maybe
Papa
some-
brandy like in relation to your Papa?
No.
No, Papa like Paw.
Pawpaws.
Paw, like in
Yeah,
the, way down
pawpaws.
yonder in the pawpaw patch. kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Oh.
way down yonder. on the
Have you ever had a
counter.
pawpaw wine?
Yeah.
Do you like a pawpaw
No, I've
wine?
never had the wine, I've had a pawpaw.
It's very sweet, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
I think Wildside makes that with a pawpaw.
But it's a distilled, I mean, they make a brandy out of it.
No, they make a wine out of it, and you're distilling
I
it.
would
But you're
like
gonna
to
distill it.
Well, yeah, we'll see. If I can find a Papa hookup, I call them Papas, I don't call them Papas.
I got a good pop-up hookup.
Yeah, wicked. Cool. Yeah, so I'll be doing that. I'm going to be working on some neutral grain spirits just infused with one herb in a gin basket, just one pass in a gin basket. I'm working on all sorts of little special projects, so hopefully
Now,
by the fall.
are these gonna be like, like this, are they gonna be kind of for mass sell, or these are something like, if you come here and do the tour, I'll give you the sample of my magic solution?
That's how it's going to start, and then eventually we may.
Camera.
I've got my Franken whiskey that's going to be coming out.
You mentioned that before, what is Franken whiskey?
I want to show it to you all. I
Is
wanna
it
show you
frankincense and
I would,
myrrh?
yeah. I want them to try it too.
What?
No, it's not frankincense. I
No,
want
see, I was thinking, I
love
was like, that's
frankincense.
kind of cool, if you did frankincense.
So you put different types of whiskey together?
Exactly. You got it. Look at you.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, so
See, that's
Franken
why,
whiskey.
see, that's your role here. You said, what do I do here? You figure out all the,
one thing in 20
you
minutes of
figure out all the
interview,
difficult.
I'll come through.
Yeah, we'll show you the Franken whiskey.
They just brought us in some
Franken.
monstrosity called Franken whiskey. I'll put it in front of Jerry's face there.
So what exactly is it?
So Franken whiskey is an idea that was up on the Ricks before I even started mashing.
Or
But
is it some?
it's also a delicious and good idea that I had to bottle. So last year around August, I was like, man, what if we did something like really cool and spooky? So I contacted Tony Moore, who was one of the comic book artists for The Walking Dead. I believe he also works for Marvel and stuff now. He did Tyler Childers' most recent album cover. Tony Moore's amazing, and he grew up in Cynthiana, where I grew up. So I emailed him and I was like, hey man, I'm a distiller in Bourbon County. I grew up in Cynthiana. If we throw you some money, like, would you want to design this label for us for Franken whiskey? And he was just like, hell yeah. So he did this label, and it's phenomenal. This is super small batch, and every batch of Franken whiskey, once it's gone, and it will never exist again. I've already got Franken whiskeys up on the Ricks for next year's release. So this will not be released until October. And what Franken whiskey is a mishmash amalgamation of several different mash bills, all put into just a few barrels. So say I distill, 8 gallons of juice one day. Cut that. Say I distill 8 gallons of juice one day, and I've got a 6.2 gallon barrel to put it in. Well, I'm not going to throw that other 1.8 gallons away. I'm going to put it in another barrel. Well, the next day I distill something else and I've got a gallon left over. I just top that barrel off, and I keep topping that barrel off with all sorts of weird mash bills until it's full.
Now, do you keep track of what you put in there? Or you're just like,
I do.
yeah, whatever.
Well, technically I have to keep track of it in our software to keep records for TTB, because they have to know from grain to glass where everything goes. Could I get into the records and dig out what's in this? Yes, I could. Will I? Absolutely not. But you'll just try it and see for yourself.
So
I was really
This is like a very fancy, very nice infinity bottle.
essentially is.
Yeah, it's basically Infinity Bottle.
And this, once this is gone, it's gone. And
Is it
I
only
think we'll
coming
probably
the,
commission Tony every year for a different label. We'll see. Well, at least till we run out of these.
Is it only in the 375s?
It's only in the 375. And this batch is only made up of 3 barrels, 3 6.2s, and it's at barrel proof. This is 117.8 proof.
nice.
So be careful, boys. I'm a tank.
I've never had anything more than 99, so.
Yeah, I'm a tank, so you probably can't.
What? I'll tell the truth.
That is definitely good.
I'm not sure if we're going to do pre-sales for this, or if it's going to be like limit 1 bottle per person. We have a couple bottles set back for Tony. I have a couple bottles set back for close friends of the distillery and for us, but after that, this batch is gone.
But it won't release until October.
It's not going to release until September or
September.
October. Technically, I could put it up for sale right now, but I'm not gonna, because it's spooky.
So how many of these bottles will you have then of this? Have any idea?
Very few.
Very few?
Very
Said it was
few.
only
Can we
3
get on the
barrels.
list?
Very few, huh?
Can we get on the list?
Maybe.
Just like that.
I'm sure it's a short list, Lowell.
Oh,
Short
honey,
list.
yeah, it is a short list, and what I've started doing is just giving people my business card, and anybody who emails me around September, I reckon they'll get an email as soon as it releases. At this point, I can't promise anybody anything. It's a short list for these batches.
So you're going to release this once a year?
Once a year around October. It'll be like our spooky little release. As a former goth kid, and a punk, I think it's important to hearken to my roots and release something that's Halloween-y.
You were a goth kid.
Were you a goth kid?
But Jerry was, that's where he
No,
He had the mohawk.
No,
I did have a mohawk. I got kicked out of school so many times for my mohawk.
he lost the
So
bet one
stupid.
time, and I don't know what he did.
And you can't come to school now.
A ring cut around your head?
No, I didn't do that.
Okay, but
I
he had something one time. I think he lost a bet, and they set a bowl on his head, and they cut like a 1-inch, 2-inch stripe all the way around his head.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah, it looked like one of Saturn's rings, and it was.
Just like a mushroom cut.
Yeah, basically it was kind of like a headband kind of a thing.
Yeah, the headband fit perfectly with his hair.
My mohawk was dope and no one can tell me differently. My mohawk was really cool.
This is when you were in Cynthiana?
Yeah, yeah. I was the only punk in Cynthiana, Kentucky. Yeah.
Until now.
Yeah.
It's a worldwide,
Yeah.
punk scene now.
I mean, they started
I
The
guess
Walking
so.
Dead, so yeah, it's good now. This is awesome. I like this.
Yeah, I like that.
Isn't it wild? It hits really every single
This is
spot.
really
Yeah.
good.
You know, people try to identify all the flavors, and it's like, it's every single flavor.
He can do that. He can
It's
pick
every
those
single
out.
flavor on the bourbon flavor wheel.
Man, that's good stuff.
It is really good. I know.
Yes, that's pretty well rounded.
I've got a whole lot of freaky stuff planned out for the second release too. Like there's going to be a single malt in there. Just, yeah.
So you're gonna make more of an intentional kind of a thing on the second release? Because it sounds like this was just like whatever came down the line, you kind of dumped it.
What I'm intending to do is to have more Franken whiskey barrels so that it's not such like a very like freaky like Black Friday race to our website or to here, so that people aren't stomping over each other. Because I imagine that when this is released, it's going to sell out in a couple of hours. You know, our exceptional barrels tend to do that. I'll release a single barrel, that's our exceptional barrel program. It'll be gone in 2 days.
Now, do you put that on your website?
We
or-
do.
Okay.
Yeah, and people show up here chomping at the bit. Like when we release our apple pie rum, I mean, I can't keep it on the shelves.
I have that at home in a little small 375s.
Yeah,
I
you know, where we made hand sanitizer through the pandemic, I didn't get to distill from March until September of last year, and I didn't have time to make the apple pie rum. That's a very labor-intensive process. Like, you got to make the white rum, and then you got to soak cinnamon sticks in it for 3 months, and then you got to cut it with apple juice and apple cider from the local cidery, because you're trying to do everything seasonally, and we couldn't do it. So people are coming in and they're pretty upset that I don't have
I
that
have a
product
little
to
ball. I'll
offer.
bring it over next time so I can try it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm in the process of getting some fermenters open upstairs so I can do a run of rum. And the first thing I'm gonna make is the apple pie rum. So I'm hoping that that's gonna be on shelves by the fall. I'm sorry, pandemic here. Please stop yelling at me. I'm very sorry. I'm doing the best I can. But I'm hoping to do a couple of 26-gallon runs in the 26-gallon stills of apple pie rum. So
Now, what's
I
rum
swear to God,
basis?
it's coming.
Are you using like molasses or are you?
We use molasses. Yeah, we don't use cane sugar. Like molasses is the delicious, nutritious byproduct of making cane sugar. And we use a more like South African, Indo-Caribbean style of rum making. We make a funky rum out of molasses, right? Yeah. Feel free to try it. I mean, it's right in front of you. Especially the aged rum. So the aged rum sits in a used bourbon barrel for like
Oh,
2
wow.
years.
It doesn't mean any slower.
You have to put some drama in this.
I'm so slow.
Yeah, the apple pie rum is also only about 40%. So like, your auntie who don't drink, your mama who don't drink, she can have the apple
She
pie rum.
can.
It's also great to cook with, to make like a pumpkin pie with.
Oh, yes.
You know, what I've done before is slow cook peaches down with it in a pan and then throw them over some vanilla
I
ice
love
cream.
peaches. Love
Yeah,
peaches.
I'm really gonna try to have that for sale by August or September.
What's the Red State? Red State Barbecue makes a peach, something, peach bread pudding or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That kind of sounds like what you're talking about, but that sounds good. Like you reduce some peaches down, get them nice and syrupy, put this in.
Yeah.
I love peaches.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so you guys probably know this, but rum is typically aged in wine barrels. I don't have any wine barrels, I have bourbon barrels. So
Makes
that's
it
what
better.
we use.
That makes it better. I mean, anything in a bourbon barrel is better than a wine barrel, I think.
Thank you all.
Yes, that's good.
So when people come here, because you're on the
The craft
the craft trail.
Yep.
So it's changed, because when I did it, there were probably only 10 or 11 on it. And I came here the
Now
first
it's a
time.
boot this thick.
It is, it's very thick, and you gotta pay for it now,
It's $3.
KDA, and you gotta pay for it. And, you know, but there's what, 20 on it now? And you're part of I know you collect the medallions, you get a little stave, you get all the medallions once you're finished, so you're part of that. So what's that experience like when you come here? I know you have different types of tours that you offer.
What, if you just show up on the craft trail? So anybody that comes in off the street, even just to browse, we like to just offer them a short, 5 to 15 minute tour of the production area, just the first floor. You know, and that used to include the cocktail bar, but now they can see how we pivoted into hand sanitizer and virtual tasting kits, and they can see that the cocktail bar is no more. But they can come see the stills. If I'm distilling that day, they'll get to see White Dog, you know, coming right off the still or whatever I'm making. So generally the craft tours will last 5 to 15 minutes. Some people don't want that experience. They just want the stamp and they want to go on their way. Then we offer them a short tasting of anything I've got up here for free. Not the Franken whiskey. Sorry, you got to pay for that. That's the paid tour. You got to get the paid tour for that. Yeah, but generally we just try to be very hospitable to everyone and kind of show them what we're all about. And then they get their little stamp. Provided that anyone has sent us coins or staves, as we have requested on multiple occasions, we will have them and we will give them away to people. If we do not have coins or staves, please don't get mad at me. I'll take somebody's name down and we will mail them to them as soon as we get them. So right now I have a list of people who need coins because no one has shipped them to me.
So if you're doing the craft trail, don't just come in and do the tasting. See what's behind this wall.
Yeah, go see the production area.
Yes, I mean, everything is different.
You can taste White Dog straight off the still.
Everything is different. I mean, I know if you've done 3 or 4 different distilleries, you may say, why would I go through all the process again? Everything is different. What I've learned on, especially the craft, everything is different. There's a different way you go about it compared to limestone brands, compared to Old Poe. There's a different way. So it's kind of cool to see the way you all do it, the way you market yourselves and all that, with, you know, especially with your 6.2s. So, I mean, it's definitely worth getting the whole experience.
I think so too.
And still just come in and get your
booth stamp. It's like, come hang out with me for a little bit, you know? Like,
Yes, it's fun.
you know. Maybe I know your kids. I don't know. Maybe we went to high school together. I gave a Hartfield tour to a girl a week and a half ago when we went to high school together and didn't recognize each other until I said, what did I say? I was like, yeah, it's like, and she was like, you're Kelley Davidson.
You know why? Because you're from Eastern Kentucky. You cannot say any words with the I in them.
She was like, you're Kelley Davidson. And I was like, yes, ma'am.
You cannot say, that's one thing you learn, I cannot order a Sprite through a drive-thru.
Sprite.
Or I can't talk to anybody called Mike because it comes out Mac. I mean, so that was your giveaway right there. No long I's.
Like
you can say short I's.
The far tires.
So like Mick you're good with. Mike, you're not. It's a giveaway. So
It's a dead giveaway.
It's a dead giveaway.
I love it. I love my accent. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I've
But
never
yeah,
been
she
to
knew.
it.
She was like, I knew you from somewhere, and I heard you say that. I was like, cool.
This is good stuff.
Hey, girl. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having us. This has been awesome.
You're very welcome.
I love coming here. Even though you've never seen me, I've been here.
You know what you start doing? You should start coming back in disguise, and every time you're here, be like, I've been here like 9 times. You're like, I don't know who the hell you are.
Yeah, just wear like a wig and
But just
sunglasses.
keep changing it up.
I'll come as Michael
Just like,
Myers.
yeah, it's like Murder on the Orient Express.
Yes.
Like one day you show up in like a silk kimono, and then like the next day you're dressed like a train conductor.
Yes.
You have like a big
And
mustache
she's like,
on
I
top
don't
of your
know
mustache.
you. You're like, you know me.
I don't know if I want to come off that creepy, but I will try
You
different
can
things.
start you can start quoting things that she's told you in the past. You're like, I know you're from Breathitt County.
Yeah.
You're from something. You're like, oh my God.
But I'll definitely be back.
Thank you boys for coming in.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Meet you.
I know we kept you from doing, we saw you drive by on the forklift earlier while we were sitting here drinking bourbon.
I was just out there doing donuts, honey. I wasn't actually working. Kidding, I was working. I wasn't doing donuts.
Andrew was with you. Is he still working?
He's probably still upstairs, yeah. He's probably watching us right now because I think
Oh, the camera.
we probably keep setting that sensor off and it goes off on his iPhone. So he may be watching.
So every time we move,
What up, Robot Andrew?
Hey, Robot.
Maybe.
When I was up there, he was listening to Gorillas very loudly.
Oh,
Was it?
cool, yeah.
so,
He's bobbing.
so we,
He works late. We all typically work kind of late.
you do?
Yeah. Well, you like your job. Just work late.
I can see that.
Just denied a call from my dad. Sorry, Dad.
So if you come to Bourbon County, come here.
yeah.
Not because it's the only distillery, but it's a cool distillery to see.
Even if this were the 151st distillery, it would still be worth it. a visit, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is the coolest distillery. I'm biased, but.
Drinking dark whiskey